Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In the last episode, you saw me get the Smyth Ute kit all mocked up and things are looking great there. I plan on going in a different direction with the tail lights though. Check out what I got in store. Yeah, do I have your attention? Let me show you how it all came together. All right, so we're about to tackle our tailgate and I want to show you a few things. We have the plastic cups that insert right in here. We have the hinges that go on the aluminum bedside, the shouldered bolts that go to these cables, and these are the rear door strikers. We're gonna unbolt them from the car and use the tapered bolts with these hinges. So let's bolt everything up and I'll show you how it goes. The full-size cup hinge goes on the driver's side and the slider one goes on the passenger side. We'll insert our tapered bolts, nuts and washers on the back. And then we'll use a T40 to attach this bolt. So we have our striker, which will end up going here. After I drill out these two holes, we'll be able to slide the button head screw in from the back side and bolt everything up. Also note, on the striker, you do have oval holes here. That's for adjustment. Mark says to wait until one of the final steps before you start to adjust it. And once you get everything installed, it should look like this. But like I said, we're going to do things a little bit differently in this episode. Smyth Performance has a sleek and attractive kit for the rear end. My favorite part about the 11 to 23 Chargers have always been the taillights. It's the main design cue taken from the 1960s models, and naturally I want to integrate those into my Charger and create the Ute that Dodge would have made. While in this episode we're going to focus on grafting the trunk lid and the Ranger tailgate together, so smash that like button, let me know how I'm doing in the comments, and get ready for more custom work. Starting off on the trunk lid of this Charger, I have to remove this latch. This out of the way. And then we can remove our tail light and camera. And then I can quickly trim this inner structure away. And then cut straight across the top of the lid to separate everything. But we're not done yet because the rest of this inner structure needs to go as well. So I'm going to cut right along that seam where those two pieces join together and then get all of that excess metal out of the way. We're going to need to clear all of this up so that when we start to put the two pieces together, the trunk and the tailgate, there won't be any problems. Now, this is my first opportunity to see the trunk and the tailgate up against the car, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing. But there's a few things that I'm trying to decide on next. The Ranger tailgate is 54 inches across, and the Charger trunk is 46 inches. The side taillights that are on the quarter panel add nearly 20 inches to the rear end. So basically none of those measurements match, and it won't be a simple fix. So I could either remove 10 inches out of the center taillight and fit all three taillights onto the tailgate, or I can keep all of the lights as sized and then extend the tailgate into the quarter panels and create that wraparound shape. Each option has its pros and cons, but ultimately I decided to keep the stock taillight size and just widen the tailgate. What decision would you have made? Let me know in the comments. But with my path clear, I started to trim the quarter panel just so I can get the first few inches of the taillight bucket, and then I made my final cuts into the Ranger tailgate. I figured this would be the first of many cuts that I would make as I start to trim back a little bit more and a little bit more so I can get the trunk and the tailgate grafted perfectly. After I cut the top of the tailgate off, then I was able to remove the skin and start to fit everything up to see how everything lined up. And at this point, the trunk lid is starting to look good, but there's still those side pieces that I need to be able to put in there. So I had to cut away some additional metal off the ends so I can put those taillight buckets in and complete the look. All right, so far things are coming along really well. There's just a little too much flex here in this taillight. And that's because I cut here during the first carving session of the car, and then I need to reinforce this area right here. So what I've done is I've bent up some metal, I've put some plug holes in there. So then I'll just align the light exactly where I want it, maybe like right there. Go ahead and zap, 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 get everything in there, and do the same thing to the other side. And then additionally, I'll re-weld that area right here so I can get that solid. I'm also going to weld a quick bracket underneath the keyhole. Just want to make sure that the trunk is tilted at the right angle. After that, I just made a few cuts into the aluminum, making way for the tailgate as it swings into the rest of the bed. I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at it. Yeah, man. That's the ticket right there. That is the ticket. Am I ready to cut fiberglass though? I already cut metal, so what's a little fiberglass between friends? My concern is I'm gonna need to cut everything from here on back, because I'm still not sure how much of this I want to keep and try to blend in, if I should at all. What's easier, welding metal or fiberglassing? Welding metal is a little easier to me, so I'm wondering maybe I should take off everything just beyond this body line. Just kind of right there. That should give me what I need to go all the way up, hopefully. Do it on both sides. And let's mark it. So little time, so many cuts, so little time. Man, I am digging it. I'm digging it. So, as you can see, there's so much space in between here, and that's because this needs to come in just throughout the regular bonding process. So it's gonna look like this. I'm gonna have to do something about this body line, try to match it to this. This line has a little bit more definition than this one. This one is like really soft curve. This one is a little bit harder. So what I plan to do is, I don't know if I can kind of, it's kind of weird. I would love to be able to bring this in and then match this curve with one of these. That may mean I may need to cut this back a little bit because it seems to get a little harder. Is it me, or does that line get a little bit more definition right here versus right here? Maybe it's a silver playing tricks on me. Anyway, I plan to bring this line into probably this one, or maybe bring them both into one line and then join it right here. I think that may be the ticket. With there being a body gap right there, you can play with a lot of things when you have a body gap. Is this in its final resting spot? I don't know. Take a look at it with me. It looks awfully truckish, right? Straight back. Mark's Ute kits, this natural resting spot for this Ranger tailgate is a few degrees inward. So, you know, I am playing with that natural engineering and kind of putting my spin on it. So I don't want to tilt this to create that same rake, because then that's going to widen the gap between this metal and this metal. So that's only going to create even more work for myself. And I don't like these taillights pointing up. You see, Mark's kit really
does the body justice by putting the light there. On the Charger itself, it's pretty straight, so I'd probably like to recreate that as much as possible, which means I'm gonna have to, I don't know, maybe pie cut something out of here and then try to bring it in. And that might bring this out more to try to, you know, do that. So a lot of things we can do, but no, I think it's just metal fab and fiberglass from here, right? So when I thought I was done with work, right? Got a little bit more work to do. Yeah, let's keep it going. All right, so it is day 2 with my trunk, and I think I have a plan of attack. If you look right here, you can see the body line of the trunk. The body line of the tailgate does not match up with the taillight. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna pie cut and take out, like, just think of cutting a slice of pizza out and then having that ability to sandwich this in. I'm gonna cut right along this seam all the way across. And I'm gonna cut in the middle and remove my bracket here. And that way I can kind of fold this up, fold that side up, and bring this edge to meet this curvature. And once I meet the curvature, I can add in an additional piece of metal that'll fill in for the additional real estate that the curve is gonna take up. And then of course, I'll have to come back underneath here and add an additional piece of metal to take up all of this curvature that I created by moving this up. My goal is to eventually gradually wind down this curvature into something not as flat, but not as round either. And I need this to start massaging that curvature out, and then I'll fiberglass a roll pan that can take out the rest of the curve. All in all, my goal is for it to look factory with a squint, right? Factory with a squint. I mean, you know something's up with this, but you can't exactly nail it. That's my goal with the entire car. So we're gonna continue that on here. I think I got a good plan of attack. I've never done anything like this before, but no time like the present to learn. So let me get my tools out and we'll get the gutting. All right, so I think we're out of the mock-up phase. I've gotten everything marked, things that I need to pay attention to. So I'm gonna break the spot welds that I have along here, clean up everything, come back with thicker metal to reinforce the areas that need the strength, prep all of my areas that need welding. And this is a really exciting moment for me because I'm starting to see everything come together. I don't draw much, I don't do 3D renderings, so my opportunity to see and to tweak things comes in the form of doing it. And right now I'm just trying to nail down the pitch of that taillight so I can try to get everything looking as natural as possible. And once I nail that, then I start to
add some additional metal in here just with some self-tapping screws. And that way I can start to fill in that missing gap that I need. And I'll be butt welding everything together just to try to create such a seamless transition between the trunk and the tailgate. There's two basic ways on how to weld this type of metal together. You can either butt weld or lap weld. Lap welding is when you put one piece of metal over the other one and then weld them together. Butt welding is when you butt up the two pieces of metal and you weld them to create one seamless plane. Butt welding can be a little bit more difficult because you're risking blow through. There's a higher likelihood of failure. So you have to be really careful with the amount of current that you're putting through and how quickly you're moving across the panel. So as you can see, I cut the metal so I can create that butt weld effect. And then I raise the additional metal to meet the trunk lid. And that way I can weld it to create that seamless plane I was talking about. And then I just use that crowbar to lift up the metal and do the same thing all the way across the panel. And that's how you have it. And after taking your time and doing it right, this is how it came out. Very happy with the way that the contour looks all the way across the panel. But I'm far from done. I have to make some custom templates so I can cut out some additional metal to fill in that area on the left and right side underneath the taillights. So I make some markings using cardboard, make sure everything fits right, and then I can cut them out of 20 gauge metal and burn it all in. With those pieces done, I had to turn my attention to underneath the taillight. Now, if you're looking at the Charger, typically underneath the taillight is kind of covered with the rear bumper. Don't really have to worry about that. But with this tailgate, you have to add additional metal underneath there to kind of close things off. The only metal tools that I have are a hammer and a vise. So right there, I tried to get to work bending the metal to create that contour that'll connect the underside of the taillight bucket to the edge of the taillight coming out to the tailgate. And it took a few times going back and forth, but I finally got the contours looking right. And with that transition looking seamless, then I can start to weld all of that together as well.
Good. Middle point. Now with the connector off the car, we can pop out this red clip.
All right, it is starting to look like something. I got a little bit of extra metal here, perfect for welding. I can trim a lot of this off and still have a nice shelf for this light. I even tried my way of trying to mock up a little line here for the back of the taillight. It's okay, I can beat it in a little bit to create that curvature, but great, looks great. And here I can kind of trim away and then butt weld what I need. So I'm liking this a lot. I can do the same thing on the other side and I'll be great. And then we can start doing some mock-ups to get some fiberglass in here to meet the tailgate to what's left of the quarter panel. Kind of do the same thing here, give a little bit of gap so that this is nice and flush. I got to decide if I'm going to trim away at this point. It only makes sense to. I'll probably trim back a little bit and then try to create something where these two can play nice on the sides. But I can see the end in sight, and it's looking pretty promising. And now I can start to cut away at that excess metal and make a plan for welding everything in. I'll clean up my welds after everything's cooled, and hey, it's starting to come together. It's looking nice. I'll throw some seam sealer on both sides and we'll move on to the next thing. So earlier we removed a lot of metal out of the tailgate in order to get the trunk to fit. So I went over to my local home improvement store and I grabbed some 3/16 flat stock. It's really thick metal and it's going to be perfect for stiffening up this new tailgate. So after I welded everything in, it's looking really great, but there's still this gap and I want to tighten that up a little bit. So I still had some leftover trunk metal that I cut out of the skin, and I'm going to use that
Just gonna use a combination of stitch welds and plug welds to kind of finish off the inside of this panel. So here's how it turned out so far. I'm really happy with the way it's shaping up. I'll end up finishing this leading edge with some small metal rod, and the rest of the inside will get removable aluminum panels. On the outside, I welded the keyhole, grinded down the welds, and used thin layers of kitty hair and body filler to smooth out those transitions. I had to trim out the tailgate's ears a bit to fit the quarter panel better, and after a few layers of primer, it's looking like a U. In the next episode, I'll build out the fiberglass molds to close the blank spaces on the quarter panel and put the whole rear end in primer. Thanks for watching.